There was a time when getting from one zone to another in Azeroth felt like a journey. You didn't just arrive, you crossed it. You ran through zones you weren't ready for. You followed the road because it felt safer. You learned where the danger was. Sometimes you learned the hard way. And you finally made it where you were going. It felt like you had arrived, like you had done something important when you got there. Before mounts, before flying, before portals, Azeroth did feel bigger to me. Not because it was larger, in part because it took time to move through it. Somewhere along the lines, that changed. Not all at once, but one piece by piece. And we're going to talk about what we gained and what we might have lost when Azeroth got smaller. This isn't a classic versus retail or mounts versus no mounts argument. This is just observations on my part about something that was very important to me in TBC. Movement changed how the world felt in Azeroth. Not because Azeroth got smaller, but because we moved faster. And your relationship changes with it as you move faster through Azeroth. Early on, you ran everywhere. You were a newbie and you went through the starting zones, and every so often you would see this bass level toon just run by you on a mount. And you were like, wow, they're so fast. And that moment you realize I need to get a mount. That took some time in vanilla and TBC. It was not easy to do. Sometimes it took months to save for that mount and the training. There was a journey. There was a cost of getting riding training and buying your first mount. Before the mount, you learned zones by repetition. You knew where the mobs would react to you. You knew where it was safe to cut through and get off the roads and where it wasn't. Wrong turns mattered because you ended up as a ghost. The world pushed back just enough to make you respect it. That resistance created something important, friction. We'll leave that there and come back to it. You might have hit 40 and had the goal to go buy your training and your mount, but most of us did not. I did not at 40. I remember it being a big deal to hit ding, type ding in chat, and some of my guildies, hey, grats on 40, grats on 40. You know, they would look in the guild and see that you were level 40, and it was a big thing. You had saved a little bit of gold, but most of it you had burned on either the auction house or on skills training. You just didn't seem to keep it. You had, a few gold, not enough to buy the mount. You needed the 100 gold to get the training in the mount, I believe. I could be wrong there. You'll correct me if I am. So you started saving gold as you were in STV or another level 40-ish zone that was huge. Stranglethorn Vale was so big from top to bottom. Mobs everywhere, elites in some places. There were only a couple of flight points, one in the north for Alley and one in the south for both factions. There was a point for Horde. I played mostly Alley at that time. So there weren't many flight points. You had to run the zone. And you hit 40 and you were like, I need to get a mount. That would make life much easier here. That mount felt like progress, not just faster movement and belonging. Mounts didn't break the world. They rewarded you for your time in it. And if you'll think back to that very first mount, I remember I flew into Stormwind. I had the gold, and I was like, I got to go get my training. I got to go buy my mount. It was the longest run from Stormwind to Eastvale Logging Camp. Like, seemed to take forever. And I arrived and I went to the riding trainer and I bought the skill and I bought the chestnut mare. I remember I could not wait to pop that spell. And then I'm on a mount and I'm running down the roads of Elwyn Forest. I'm passing people that don't have mounts. Like, I am somebody. It was a false sense of I've achieved this massive thing. But I had achieved something. I had achieved a mount, and that was a defining, canon moment for a lot of early WoW players, was getting that mount training. It made the world a little smaller. You were able to outrun mobs, get off the road a little bit. You could still be knocked off your mount. Don't get me wrong. It wasn't it wasn't a free pass through zones, but you were able to travel places faster. There weren't as many flight points or portals or anything like that. Your mount meant you had reached a certain level in WoW that not all players made at the time. You made level 40. For me, I think I was about 43 or 44 before I had the gold. And you had purchased mount training, and the ride was so cool. Then we came to TBC. And in TBC, they introduced flying in the Outlands. Now, when you first went to the Outlands, gold was much easier. You were able to farm it faster, but your flying mount was extremely expensive still. The different levels of mounts made a little more of a gold sink for Blizzard, but that still was something for you to achieve after you hit 70, or in case right when you hit 70. And for me, it was probably about a month after I hit 70 before I was able to afford the training and the mount. I remember being in the Outlands, and I purchased the training, and I hop on the mount and I start flying around the Outlands. I could see things I had never seen before, land places and walk spaces that I had never been before. It truly changed the game, and for me, it was different. Flying wasn't available in Azeroth as a whole. You had to be in the Outlands, and so it was also a different level of respect when you could hop on that Griffith and just fly around. You could go over Zanga Marsh, Nagrand. Some places were scary. You had the Blades up top and the Shadow Moon Valley. They were all new to you because you could fly. My point is that mounts changed a lot for good, and in some places for nostalgia, not so good. Let's look a little bit at modern WoW, where you get instant movement, the pros and cons. In modern WoW, portals connect everything. You have a portal room in the major cities. You're able to go to the different expansions via portal. You have the Dungeon Finder and LFR that portal you straight into the dungeons. Do you remember when you had to run to a dungeon, to the stone, sometimes summon people? With flying, you were able to fly to a stone and avoid all of the mobs around the stone, just land right on top of it. And there was a nice little gathering place at the stone when you had to run there. With Dungeon Finder, that changed a little bit, for good and bad. I like Dungeon Finder. Some people don't. I get that. I really do. But it allows me, more of an introvert, less social in chat, to find, a group when I need to. Remember, in modern WoW, distance doesn't really matter with portals and instant travel. Zones kind of get blurred together and lumped by expansions. You may not even remember a path to avoid mobs or the quickest way somewhere, but you remember the destination. The world didn't get smaller. We just stopped needing to move through it. A citizen of Azeroth remembers the roads in Vanilla, TBC, and Wrath. They value the space between places, the adventure that awaited there. They understand that friction that travel created. The friction of having to walk zone to zone. The friction of having to, save for a mount. That friction creates, some adventure for you. Retail, they respect your time in retail. It's about getting the job done and doing it in a fun way. Classic, it respects the original world, the way it was. Two different mentalities for players. They're different because they ask different things from you. Letters from Azeroth. I posed the question on Reddit about your first mount and memories of it. I want to share a few of those. So we'll start with something simple. I remember hitting level 40 and realizing I didn't have enough gold. I had to go back and grind for it. I was killing random mobs, selling everything I could, just trying to get there. And when I finally did, it felt earned, like I had unlocked something important. That hit with me. I had that same feeling. I had that same experience. Another wrote, I still remember the first time I rode through a zone instead of running. It didn't just feel faster, it felt different, like the world opened up a little more. Yeah, it did. You're right. Someone else said, before I had a mount, I knew every road. I knew which areas were dangerous, which one where mobs would catch me, where I could cut through safely. After I got a mount, I didn't need to know those things anymore in the same way. It changed how we attack the world. Another player shares, my guild helped me get my first mount. People chipped in gold because they knew it was a big deal. This doesn't really happen anymore in the same way. In a lot of places, the guild was the reason you got your mount. There were some, maxed out 60s and 70s that had gold just sitting around, and they would give a player a few golds on a ding for 40 and help them buy those mounts. That created a little more community, like you were paying it forward to maybe someone that helped you out. Another writes, it wasn't just about moving faster. It was about finally feeling I belonged in the world. But that's it. Yes, it changed. But it was for good. These letters from Azeroth remind me of myself. The world didn't feel bigger because it took longer. It felt bigger because it mattered. Let me ask you something. Do you remember your first mount? Do you remember the roads that you used to take to get to places? The shortcuts you used to take to avoid danger? When did travel stop feeling like a part of the adventure? And if you're honest, do you miss that? It's okay if you don't. It's okay if you do. Azeroth is still vast. The zones are still there. The roads are still there. We just move through them differently now. The world did change in Cataclysm, but not in Classic. Maybe it didn't change. Maybe we just stopped walking through it. Next time, we're going to talk about something that connects us to all of this. Why nostalgia in WoW feels so powerful, and why we're actually remembering what we're remembering when we say we miss it. Life first, adventure when it fits.